It continues. We'll see if the choppy screen continues. Welcome back, everybody. It is the massive 300th episode of this show. It's hard to believe, but we are back. Artist Journal, Monday, February 19th, 2024. Broadcasting from the pirate ship of the mind. My name is Adrian Pocobelli, and I welcome you back. A heartfelt welcome back. We have a massive show today. But while we're here, first of all, thank you for the massive support. It's, going back to the beginning of this show, I'll never forget, 20 shows in, and a full credit has to be given to the Tezos community, by the way. This is a multi-chain show, proudly, and we even go multimedia. We go to contemporary art here, as we all know who've watched this show. This is not limited to one blockchain or even one medium, digital art. We do everything here. There are no rules to a certain degree. This is an artist journal. This is a journal, okay? But full credit, though, has to be given to really the Tezos community. I mean, this show started, interestingly, as notifications from Object. And Object as well deserves a lot of credit. One could argue this show may not exist without Object's website. We've talked about the brilliance of Object's website, the notifications. The first probably 30 shows were me looking at my notifications on Object and going, oh, this one, and let's pick 10 here, and whatever. And here's 10 works, and then 15, 20 works. Here they are, just that's how I would get them. And then for whatever reason, the notifications weren't working that well for a while, and then I moved on to Twitter. Out of necessity, and then all of a sudden a whole other world started to open up. So all to say, full credit to Object and to Tezos community, who really, I'll never forget 30 shows in and being like, oh my God, 30 people are watching this thing. This has never happened to me before. What am I going to say? Right? And some people still watching. Really growing with that community there. So just heartfelt thanks there. And the excitement, really, of, building an audience. Because, of course, many of us out there have tried to, artists are entrepreneurs, right? And so, part of being an artist is building an audience, right? And so many of us have tried. And I tried and spun my wheels with zero, really, I wouldn't say zero success, but basically with little tangible results until this show where you can go, okay, there are some results that we can point to and go, okay, someone's watching this. We can tell just by the comments, right? And even the comments came early and, a fair amount from the very early on. So just a big thank you. And again, just giving credit where credit is due to that wonderful community on Tezos, including Object and, who are minting there. And now we've expanded our, perspectives to include everybody. Why would we limit ourselves? It would be foolish to do that. So all to say a big thank you. Just final note on this. So I've been thinking now 300 episodes in, again, early on, as I said to people, it's okay for this to be small, right? Because I was kind of I wasn't ready for, I didn't need to grow overnight is basically what I was saying to some massive, YouTube show, let's say. So I was very happy to let's just keep going. This is good. It's basically what I was saying. But now we're 300 episodes in, and there's a lot more experience under the belt, broadcasting experience on video and everything. Now, what I'm going to attempt to do is take baby steps towards bringing a more entrepreneurial side to this project. In a sense, I make no money other than the art that I sell from people learning about me from this show, which was kind of the original plan, and there's merit in that plan. But really, so a couple of baby steps. Let me share them with you very quickly. First, I started a community on Twitter So basically, it's in order to first give a place, because I met with Jazz from Rug Radio. He's like, you have everything you need here, but you need a place for the community. There's no place for the community, so either do like a Twitter group or a Discord. Heck has mentioned maybe we do a Discord, maybe a few months ago. And I thought, well, Discord, like I use Discord, but I don't, in a sense, like it's hard to keep up with, and maybe at some point. But I thought the smaller step, the less committed step, is going to, let's create a Twitter group. So I created an Artist Journal community, and actually, I'll bring it up right here, and then we'll come back to Braun's beautiful work here. As you can see here, it's just on the profile, and it's right there. There's one member, that is me. And so this is a place, I thought, where maybe we could consolidate. Like a lot of people send me messages of like, hey, this is coming out, or check out this artist, or see this link. I think now this is going to be better for me, because then rather than it being scattered through all these messages that I might not remember even to go through each one of those messages to find the link, now maybe all the news and art gets posted there, and I can just simply scroll through it, and it becomes another feed of information for me. So it's beneficial. Maybe even consolidates things a little bit for me. So all to say, and then we also have a community, a space for the community for people to hang out who maybe want to, further discussions and whatnot. So fulfilling that role that Jazz was also mentioning. So again, baby steps here. So that is there. And I'll also have a link under the YouTube starting this episode. I'm going to start a newsletter. I don't think I actually brought that up as a link here. Let me quickly, so I'm also, in the next week or two, I'm going to put out a newsletter, I think it's actually /newsletter here. The link will be here. If you go here, and then it'll be basically, I'm thinking, basically it'll consolidate everything that's come out for the week. And then at the bottom, we put classic artwork from the past that maybe isn't getting much play, or just like it's an excuse to go back. Because here, as you know, it's almost all new work from the last 48 hours generally. So maybe at the bottom of the newsletter, you just put like a golden, gem or precious work at the bottom, but from the past, that maybe is just now, maybe an artist that's even left the blockchain. For all we know, we even put, physical art for all we know. But I think I'd go with something, I can already imagine some of these works in my head as I discuss this. So that's sort of what I'm thinking. Just like and so, yeah. So with that, so just baby steps, and full credit to Kalo, who we interviewed, me and Runtune and I, last Wednesday, which really also just kind of got the entrepreneurial fires going. And give Kalo's newsletter some support there, and some support on Twitter. He's also on Farcaster. I'm a little bit on Farcaster. Again, it's a lot. And so trying to also just start posting there, which is, of course, a crypto social media for those that might not know. So with that, again, just a massive thank you to everybody. And yeah, you're going to start seeing little iterations of steps towards entrepreneurialism, which I imagine, it being a journal, I will share with you along the way, and which may actually be beneficial to you, as a lot of artists watch this show, and a lot of us out there, in a sense, we're all entrepreneurs to a certain degree, building a life for ourselves. And so, so with that, let's look at Braun's awesome triptych, which kind of for me embodied, it was kind of perfect for the 300th episode. Not only is it 3, and it's called triptych, but also it showed the evolution. One of the great things about object is kind of back to object, as well as just art on the blockchain in general, is you can see the evolution of an artist, right? Like, we'll come back to this triptych here, but here's Braun's page, and we can see, it's pretty amazing to actually see here so directly. It's better than a website. Like, it's better than a personal website, right? Because a personal website, there's a lot of clicking, a lot of scrolling. Here you just get all the thumbnails. They're beautifully laid out for you in these nice squares that are all laid out really nice. And here you see all of Braun's work listed on the Tezos blockchain. How great is that? And here all of a sudden, this is when we really started, where Braun started turning my head here with these really cool flux works. And then we see this evolution, really cool works. We've seen a lot of these. We looked at that one. And then here came this one. And I just thought, there's something almost kind of museum-esque about this, isn't there? Like it grabbed me. And I liked the kind of grandeur, again, the ambition of this kind of, by turning it into a triptych. One could imagine very easily if you removed these two vertical violet bars, this being actually maybe one work, potentially. And it's kind of got that almost Jackson Pollock, I think at the MoMA, I'm thinking of that kind of, it's kind of a Jackson Pollock-esque, without the vertical bars in the middle type composition or canvas size. But here, then it turns into almost a kind of Francis Bacon-esque kind of structure here with this triptych. And I think it looks great. And again, I feel like by putting three works in one, there's a grandeur here, an ambition, as we see this artist developing this kind of, what seems to be, to me, like a kind of a new way of doing things, and then hitting, the speed of which things happen on the blockchain, making sales here and there, and all of a sudden, so it just felt like a great metaphor and a beautiful work to start this show with. And, finally here. So this is an MP4, so unfortunately I can't magnify it anymore. But what you'll notice here is there are, actually what I can do, let me do this. This will make it slightly bigger. What you can see is there's basically static pixels, and then the moving pixels are kind of in these masked areas here, or selected areas. And so again, what do we have here? We have like an original digital abstract art piece here, a triptych from Braun. So just really cool. Again, if you were to see this on really big screens, shown the right way in a contemporary art museum, you might say, this makes sense to me. You might not bat an eyelash. You might just go, of course, and think that should be here, right? So triptych.mp4, a contemporary abstract triptych piece, 30 frames per second, 3200 by 1350 by Braun. So awesome work. Big shout out to Braun, who gets us started here on our newspaper of the mind. I was thinking to myself as I just said that. So again, here's the newsletter. I may make a better, this is sign up for the newsletter updates. This will be the show newsletter. I may make another, website or page, and there should be a link below the YouTube. And otherwise it's pocobelli.net and then I think sign up right here. And you can join the newsletter. And I'm going to try and give it value. If you, I want to make it worthwhile and not just another newsletter, but the humble beginnings, just like this show started with here. So, and of course, the community there underneath the profile. So let's go to the comments here. A new visual language. Thanks for the big response there. Last show there on YouTube. And let's take a quick look here. Rada, thanks for the mention, Adrian. Excited to be on the show. So, of course, that beautiful work of the rock, I think referencing the ether rock there, and I still remember those red eyes of the rat where it was in the shadow of the rock and you only see the red eyes. A poetic work by Rada, beautiful work. I wonder what it went for. That was at auction there. A 1 of 1. Icona later, great to listen to while working on art and graphics, and I'm really glad to hear that you can be productive while working on this. That was an early concern. It's like, are people stop making art to watch this show? But in fact, a lot of people make art while they watch this show. So this is a great thing to hear. Let me just fix that and go back to our comments here. And also, Dataste. Here's Dataste. Hi, Adrian. First of all, thank you for dedicating a fragment of the episode to one of my works. I appreciate it very much. And of course, I brought up the work here. So it's this work right here. Not everything that shines is God. Lux Perpetua Fuseat Ice. My Latin, I don't have Latin, unfortunately. And then Dataste goes into how a lot of it is about religion and death. Fear of death, fear of never being again, the self that we are and that inhabits us wants us to continue after death. And we try and cover it with religion as if it guaranteed a new life on another plane. And so we're devoted to it. While one focuses on a way to ensure eternal peace after death, she steps on our heels. That's why the big and dark fog behind the bushes here. So that is a fog over here, interestingly. So the small statuette is Expeditus, patron of just and urgent causes. So all to say, and there is Expeditus, all to say all sorts of, and there it is, Saint Expeditus. So all sorts of sophistication here on the blockchain. And finally, I was born and currently live in Argentina. So big shout out. And as I've always said here, one of the things I've learned on this program is how incredible Argentina and Turkey are. As you know, as I say, they punch above their weight class in the digital art world. Again, the theory is, for me, is they're probably early adopters of crypto. But there are so many talents from Argentina and Turkey, it needs to be noted. And there's something going on there. So really great to hear. Makes me want to visit. Thanks for making a space in some episodes. Excellent show. And we're used to a big greeting. Awesome. Human Boy, wonderful episode. Great idea for other videos explaining things for newcomers, I think. Yes, I even have a name for it. I'm thinking the series will be called The Big Picture. And, discovering pixel art, this sort of stuff. To give people who need a way in, a way in. And you know what else is great about that? As we kind of take an entrepreneurial, as we include and add an entrepreneurial theme to our discussion here, is these are, I visited family in December, and the family had told me about a person that they knew who had this YouTube channel that exploded. And basically what they had done is they were putting out videos on how to sew and, textiles and like this sort of kind of sewing show. And it was doing okay, kind of like this show, it gets a few hundred views and okay, great. And then all of a sudden they put out a video on how to make shirts bigger, right? How to make a shirt bigger, right? And that one just went huge, got a couple 100,000 views, and then all of a sudden the channel and the person is doing fabulously. So all to say, doing kind of simple ideas for videos that may be in searches, that is how you grow, I think, a YouTube channel. So interestingly. So I kind of want to share I think the entrepreneurial conversation is a fun addition to this story. And I think, again, it can be done in a way that's helpful. It's not just about selling something, right? It's kind of about improving, giving a service that people need. And here it'd be for free, but then it grows the channel. So a win-win. Also, thank you for reviewing Horsing Around. I actually saw Eiley and John Cates' horse artwork. So, of course, John Cates started, I believe, the Horsing Around. And there's a Medium article. We don't have time to get to it here. But there is a Medium article. And this is also why I want to start this community group. Because then certain things, not everything can make it in here because we don't have 6 hours a day. But then you can also always go to the community. And then if John Cates posts the Medium article there, then you can kind of find stuff like that. So that is also kind of the function of the community, I'm thinking. And saw they were offering horse trade, so I wanted to release it in response. So horse trading. There's actually a sizable group of horse traders, though I found that have done this a few times before. Most of the editions were actually sent to all the other traders I could find in return for their horses. A horse for a horse, of course, of course. Yes, that is the first book I ever read, A Horse, of Course. I just listed a few in case someone had no horses in their stable. Awesome to hear from you, Human Boy. And congratulations on the cool horse work there. And John Cates, always love how positive your approach is. Thank you, John. That is deeply appreciated. Just comes out naturally, I guess. It's interesting. You know what's funny about this? Sometimes I'm kind of surprised to hear it's it's just kind of a nice, I'm glad to hear that. Because it's not like I'm self-consciously going in here and saying this really has to be positive. Although I am conscious about you don't necessarily want to be, negative, right? I mean, maybe that's just not good showbiz, right? Let's continue here. I think we had something from Ed Marola, a really interesting comment. Thank you, John. Framing art is an art in itself. And this is so true. And like everything else, you have to fail your way through it. I'm becoming slightly better. I'm not as terrible at framing as I used to be, but I still tell people, find someone that actually knows. People go to school for framing. I've met people that have done degrees, I think, in framing or some sort of schooling where they're expert framers, unbelievably enough. So indeed, you're right, Ed. We have a beautiful work by you, a stunning work this episode. Liquid Mind Art, great to hear from you. And Rada Yankee, awesome to hear from you. You are first in so many ways in our minds here, Rada. Probably the first artist I collected there, I think, on Object. So indeed, you are first, Rada. Let's take a look at the comments on YouTube here quickly before we dive into the rest of this show. Ellie Lowe, great to hear from you. Respect back, Ellie, and just love your work. Lily Illos, just the vibe. It's cool work. Lily Illos, so much positivity here. Thank you, Lily. That is wonderful to hear as well. And again, just great to hear that. Ed Marola, thanks for the mention. My pleasure. Trippy Collector, The Year of the Dragon. Indeed, this magical work by Sabato captured a lot of people's imaginations there. There were so many contenders that I could have kind of started with in this newspaper of the mind, or of the imagination. Yeah, it felt like the right one, and it still does. John Cates, as I said on YouTube's, love the positivity. Awesome to hear, John. Wonderful to hear from you. And Walk, make Object great again. And Walk is a brilliant, brilliant artist, for those that don't know. Try and find the manifesto. There was a manifesto that came out about 3 months ago that Walk put out, selling art on eBay, actually has a market on eBay. I mean, Robness comes out where eBay's kind of like selling JPEGs on eBay as a satire, but Walk's actually doing it. Of course, physical artworks. A very cool artist where the internet is core to Walk's, philosophy as an artist. 8 Septillion, this is my first episode. Great thoughts on piece descriptors. Great show. Wonderful to have you, Lenny. Really great to hear. Macro Mitrai, thank you very much. It was great to see my work for the first time here, so you're more than welcome. And I believe that was the Seahorse. So great to hear from you. And Jada, who makes the brilliant kind of lo-fi abstract GIFs. Very interesting. Could hang really well with Braun there. Hey, Adrian, thanks for showing my piece. Appreciate it. Just really cool work. Noel Rose, something I've been wondering about for a while, this being Artist Journal. Is it a journal of your thoughts as an artist, a journal of artist's art you see, or something entirely else? Side note, your hair is fabulous. Thank you, Noel. I almost can't wait to visit the hairdresser next time to be like, did you see your pictures up in that lo-fi photo that I posted the other day on a couple of episodes ago of the people at Toronto Hair here in Berlin? So to answer the question, it is an artist journal in the sense that I'm an artist and this is my journal. So more art. I've been working actually a ton. I like to kind of build up a reservoir. So now that I have a bit more time since we went to 3 episodes a week from 4, I'm making a ton of art. Actually, none's been released yet, but there's lots in the pipeline. So thank you for the question. If you want to learn more about my art, you can always go to my profile in the pinned. I have an interview with Click Create, an unknown collector, where I talk a lot about my art. So check that out as well. And again, thank you for the interest and for the question. RJ, top of my head, the Eliot essay is Tradition and the Individual Talent. Of course, I was calling it The Anxiety of Influence, which would be great for an episode. Anxiety of Influence is Harold Bloom, which might be a bit much. So I brought it up here. Tradition and the Individual Talent is a bit much. It's a very short essay. We're going to touch on it here. So actually, thank you for the comment here. But it's like you can really easily get caught in the weeds with the T.S. Eliot essay. So we're just going to kind of skip and jump a little bit around and just discuss it a tiny bit, of course, within this larger context, hopefully, of remixing. And ultimately, we have a lot of pastiche. Of course, RJ is, you could argue, a kind of pastiche artist. We see Rare. I use a ton of appropriation. It's an important comment or important discussion in terms of digital where there's so much sampling going on, right? So it kind of is reawakening. I'd argue remix culture is reawakening this discussion that T.S. Eliot brings 100 years ago. I think it was 1919 or something, right around when he wrote The Wasteland and the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. So we'll take a closer look at that actually next, but let's just finish the comments here. Cider, the printing thing is hard. So remember we were looking at Cider's test prints, and yeah, like for me, I just delight because Cider has begun the challenging process of trying to make a digital art in a physical form and make it interesting and precious. As you said, it is an experience where I'm trying to make works feel special. I'm not there yet. Soon I shall get the formula, though. You sure will. I mean, again, starting is like the hardest part. So you have started the process, and we've seen your brilliant, beautiful work. I have no doubt that you're going to figure some pretty beautiful ways of doing it. And of course, I was mentioning paper is one way. It's something you don't really necessarily think about is paper, but it's something that as you're making prints and as you start to print stuff, then you learn, oh, paper's important. And then you say, oh, what kind of papers are there? So then you start, oh, well, and that'll help make it feel precious or special, as you put it. So, and then of course, Warhol signing it with the right pencil, nice signature, maybe you do the embossing as we were mentioning. So really great. I'll give it a try. The Warhol embossed print thing sounds really nice. I'll give it a try on the next batch if it's available. Also, it is inkjet, I believe. You got it. Awesome. Great to hear from you, Cider, and thanks for the extra info and looking forward to seeing how that develops. Hasdrubal Waffle, the great waffles. Thank you always, Pocobelli. Really great to hear your thoughts on these pieces. Of course, we saw the brilliant ice skater, the ta-da, which might as well just be, the scene in one image. Ta-da, look at what we did. With this kind of video gamey, I almost want to say, and I say it endearingly, almost like the schlocky sort of like, kind of loose, style, which is aesthetically gorgeous. And it just kind of captures it all. Really great to hear your thoughts on these pieces. Was kind of thinking of an abandoned cutscene from an 80s video game about bodybuilder buddies that was never released. So that might explain, I think the skater looked like a bodybuilder there. So glad you're digging them. Yeah, they're absolutely fabulous. Hasdrubal and Gogolitis, great to hear from you. Gogolitis, Sabato's dragon is magnificent. Of course, we saw the dragon up here. Another big fan of the dragon here. You look amazing right next to it. Thank you, Gogolitis. And we have a work by you, and not just because of the compliment. We have, I actually thought about starting with Gogolitis's work. We're actually going to end with it fittingly. Because it is, it was fireworks, and I was like, that's kind of fun. But we're ending with Gogolitis's work there. Great to hear from you, Gogo. FIU, one day maybe. So if you're wondering about being in the show, if that's what this is about, FIU or Floor, join the community. Because then at least it gets it in front of my eyes, and then I can start to go, just start to follow your work, right? So feel free to join that community. Again, pinned in the profile. Miss Isles, sorry, honey, I lasted 1 minute. I have suffered badly at the fault of MTV Music. Yes, so we're working on the accessibility, Miss Isles. Thank you for trying. So here, if you do a search on T.S. Eliot, Tradition and the Individual Talent, this page is probably going to be in the top 3 pages. It's the Poetry Foundation, Essay on Poetic Theory by T.S. Eliot. And so it's actually fairly short, but it's almost like if we were to really unpack it, we would have to take a show. It's about it's a little hard to go through the whole thing because there's a lot of subtlety and everything. Long story short here, let's actually read a little bit of the introduction. Often hailed as, just so people understand what this is. Of course, RJ understands what this is. RJ studied this. I studied this. I did a master's in English as well. Something RJ and I have in common is this kind of postgraduate work in English literature. Often hailed as a successor to poet critics such as John Dryden, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and Matthew Arnold, T.S. Eliot's literary criticism informs his poetry, just as his experiences as a poet shape his critical work. Though famous for insisting on objectivity in art, Eliot's essays actually map a highly personal set of preoccupations, responses, and ideas about specific authors and works of art, as well as formulate more general theories on the connection between poetry, culture, and society. Perhaps his best-known essay, indeed, Tradition and the Individual Talent, was first published in 1919. This is right after World War I, for context, and soon after included in the Sacred Wood Essays on Poetry and Criticism from 1920. Eliot attempts to do two things in this essay. He first redefines tradition, and this is weird because, let me read this and I'll tell you why I think it's weird. He redefines tradition by emphasizing the importance of history to writing and understanding poetry, and he then argues that poetry should be essentially impersonal. That is separate and distinct. And the poetry that is separate and distinct from the personality of its writer. So it's almost a little bit of what's often called a straw man argument or a straw person argument that Eliot makes here. I would just say as a little commentary to RJ and to whoever else might read this, because he basically says, we often think of the word tradition as being basically something very conservative. We don't use it, it's traditional or too traditional. Seldom does the word appear it usually appears as a negative word or a pejorative. So Eliot's trying to make the case that we need to think of tradition as something kind of larger. I mean, I think in this show, we speak in everyday terms of the tradition here of painting. I'm not sure I buy, either T.S. Eliot, and I don't want to spend too long on this, but just a couple of thoughts. Either T.S. Eliot created our sense of the tradition as a way of thinking about the tradition before us, and that's how important this essay is. I'm not convinced, though, that Eliot is the first person to be like, we're having a conversation here with, a bunch of dead artists and writers. And that the tradition, if you want to be, as I always say here, if you want to be a part of the tradition, you have to have a conversation with the tradition. And basically, that's the first half of the essay is, I think, T.S. Eliot making a fairly simple point that I thought most of us already knew. Again, maybe he was the first to emphasize this, and which is why it's just common parlance here. So maybe we've just internalized it. It's possible, but it's interesting how many artists and thinkers do not hold up the older you get. I would even, Bertrand Russell, go find a YouTube. Do a YouTube search on Bertrand Russell, and you're gonna be like, this is the person who wrote that big history of Western philosophy and was like a major logician. Wrote the Mathematica. Was it No, that was Wittgenstein. But the Principia Mathematica with Alfred North Whitehead, and then you see the Bertrand Russell speaking, and you're like, you're not sure. It just starts to raise questions here. So nobody should be too sacred to be questioned here. And again, I'm going T.S. Eliot's idea here. I don't find particularly revolutionary, but maybe it was for the time, is how I'd qualify it. RJ, feel free to comment if you have any thoughts on that. And finally here, for Eliot, past works of art form an order or tradition. However, that order is always being altered by new work, which modifies the tradition to make room for itself. And again, exactly as we've been saying here, it's a conversation. You're having a conversation, and as a conversation happens, both parties, the conversation changes and evolves. So, and as RJ puts out work of David Hockney, maybe that changes how we see David Hockney a little bit, right? A harder thing to do, to go in reverse like that, but nevertheless. So interesting. And let's just read this last part. Now, of course, Eliot was there's a lot of he in this essay, as if poets are all men. So this was written 100 years ago. And there's also what the postmodernists would call a lot of Eurocentrism in here, as you'll see here. This view, in which the past should be altered by the present as much as the present is directed by the past, requires that a poet be familiar with almost all literary history, not just the immediate past, but the distant past, and not just the literature of his or her own country, but the whole quote-unquote mind of Europe. Today, I think we'd say that with the global, traditions beyond Europe as well. So all to say, though, but a point I've been making here for years, frankly, and since the beginning of this show, that ultimately, if you want your work to matter to the tradition to a certain degree, you got to engage with the tradition, with some of these ideas, and have some kind of awareness. You don't need to be totally a super scholar on it, but generally it helps. So all to say, and then finally, Eliot just mentions here this idea of poetry needing to be more impersonal. I think this is a response, frankly, to the Romantics, capital R Romantics, who maybe were becoming a little, even 18th century, some sentimentalism, where things were getting too sentimental, and the modernists tried to kind of dial back the sentimentality that was probably all over the 19th century, and saying ultimately that poetry has kind of a philosophical mission, is how I interpret what Eliot's saying. Let's actually quickly go to the ChatGPT summary here. Concept of tradition. Eliot, so this is what's going on in this essay, and then we can run to everything else. Eliot challenges the common perception of tradition as being solely about the past. He argues that the tradition is an ever-evolving conversation among writers across generations. For a poet to be part of this tradition, they must have they must have a historical sense, which involves understanding the past works of literature and their relationship to the tradition. I've always contrasted, this is how I define folk art. Folk art generally, I think we can say, doesn't really reference what we might call the tradition, and so that's why it's folk art. It's because it kind of has its own thing, and it's this person that just kind of went off in their own direction, but they're not necessarily thinking of, in the case of the visual arts, Leonardo, Lascaux, and Giotto, for lack of better examples, okay? Continuing on here, the individual talent. Eliot posits that a poet's talent involves the impersonal execution of work. He suggests that the most significant aspect of a poet's work is its depersonalization. The poet's mind is a catalyst where the experiences of the past and present are transformed into something new and unique. Again, I would argue this is bringing a more philosophical aspect to poetry over this kind of emotional, for lack of better term, solipsism, or you could argue that's not even poetry. It's just words about someone's emotional outpouring, but that which often gets considered poetry. So I think, again, the modernists were a bit of a reaction to the Romantics here. And then here it gets a little bit in the weeds here, and we've spent a while on this, the reevaluation of... Eliot suggests that new works of art have the power to alter our understanding and appreciation of historical works. Sure. So there's a lot of kind of simple ideas here. And again, it kind of reminds us to be skeptical. Just because someone's name is famous doesn't mean that they can't say wrong things, or that maybe they're not frankly as brilliant as they're often portrayed. Just some passing thoughts there. Continuing on, Loanwick. So Loanwick, we see more writing here in the arts here, in the scene. So we saw, I believe, Kyle Flemmer, right? Abstract, and of course there's Kalo, and then here's Loanwick. Abstract Art Analysis 21. All That Glitters is Glitch is now available. And so here it is. So we recognize this work, and thank you for the mention in there. And I brought up the piece, actually. So Loanwick has stack here, art letter by Loanwick. So how cool is that? More entrepreneurialism here. All That Glitters is Glitch. And so discussing this work, and a hilarious comment, I hesitated to go through this piece when I saw Adrian Pocobelli cover it on Artist Journal 297. After some thought, I concluded the work very much deserves the overlap of our unique perspectives. Indeed. Sometimes I'm pretty quick on stuff, so yeah, I'm totally with you, and has been following. So anyways, if you want to read Loanwick on Klaus, check that out. Someone sent this to me. Double check everything. I've never tried it. I assume it's legit, but I don't know. It came from a pretty reputable source, but I was mentioning how Zora can be a little expensive to bridge from. And this was sent to me, I think, from Bulls, if I'm not mistaken, that this is actually a pretty good way of bridging your money in a fairly cheap way from Zora to Ethereum. So just so you know, orbiter.finance. So again, do all your research and at your own risk. But as you see here, layer 2 bridge, and then it looks like you can bridge over to different, you see here? So there's probably Zora. There's Zora. So how cool is that? Decentralized finance, indeed. This was hilarious. Elon Caden, this is my workspace. Show me yours. And I can totally relate to this. I do this regularly. I work on my phone when I'm taking the S-Bahn here in Berlin. This is Berlin. Hilarious. So totally relate to that one, Elon. And Elon reached out. We're going to actually meet at some point when Elon comes back. But anyway, Brian Brinkman. So this went around. A little bit of, I don't know, bearishness, I guess, on the market here. Surprisingly, because last episode I was remarking on how the market seems to be heating up from everything I'm seeing. But it may feel like we are back when we see big art drops minting hundreds of ETH on a weekly basis. But the overall sentiment among Web3 artists right now is down bad. Consider taking a moment to buy a piece on Primary from an emerging artist. It might be what keeps them building here. My theory on this is it's probably primarily on Ethereum that this is happening, because now that Ethereum's going up, I think it's at $2,900, people are not necessarily looking to put their money into a super illiquid investment like fine art, where you don't know that if you'll get your money. And so I suspect it has to do with the price climbing. Pablo, reflecting on the sentiment in the digital art space, it's the most challenging period I've witnessed. So this tweet went around. How much? Yeah, 43,000 views there. And I've been around longer than most. While I empathize with the struggles, it's crucial for artists to initiate substantial changes. It's time to distinguish between those who contribute to the ecosystem and those who merely extract from it. I would say some of the changes you can do, though, is if you're only on ETH, you might check out Tezos. Because the problem with ETH is, I guess you can always, like, look at Hasdrubal Waffle putting works out on ETH at 0.05, doing fabulously. So maybe, but it's hard if you sold work for like 0.15 ETH and then you put work out for 0.01 ETH in order to make the sale, which is still a significant amount of money. I mean, what is that, 30 bucks, 40 bucks? 30 bucks? Yeah, like maybe that doesn't work. So I'd say maybe you check out Tezos or even Solana if that's your jam. Solana, people are still doing fabulous. And Tezos, I see a pretty good market there, surprisingly. So we'll look again today. It's time, artists should prioritize integrity, loyalty, and thoughtful engagement with their supporter. This means focusing on the art. Well, I think this is self-evident. This means focusing on the art refine. It's weird how this got so much play, doing only deliberate releases and steering clear of market-centric conversations. Collectors, having faced disappointments for a very long time, I think shouldn't bear the burden alone. This feels like kind of a more, for lack of a better term, kind of mean. Just to try and analyze and understand it, it feels like kind of like what I'd be tempted to call like mainstream Web3 collecting. Maybe people they find their investment is illiquid. They've supported the space generously, often at great cost. Now the onus is on the creative community to foster an environment that merits renewed collector engagement. As a long-standing participant, I'm stepping back until I see these essential shifts. It's an opportunity for artists to lead by example. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't see any of this, to be honest, and at least not where I'm looking. Like, I think it has slowed down for ETH artists completely, I imagine, but I suspect that's kind of a market situation. Tezos is remarkably resilient. I'd say Solana, that Gogolitis work that I was mentioning is already at 4 Sol. I don't know. The artists that I'm following continue to put out work and sell it. So, I think that's really what artists should be doing. Like, I'm kind of, again, maybe I'm the lone voice here to a certain degree, but I don't see I think people have had it so well for so long in this space that, not getting thousands of dollars for your work is all of a sudden seen as like some sort of, terrible situation. Like I think people still have it really good here. You can still mint your work. You can still put it on Sol. Exchange.art does not have a ton of work getting put on it, I would argue. And I say that as an opportunity for people. Like if you put your work up, say in the glitch section, like I've done, you're there for at least like 6 hours, kind of in the first 8, and that's like, so people will see your work, and it's often picked up by the front page. Like they see your work, the editors there of the front page. So I still see opportunity everywhere. So RJ kind of making light of this, because of course, like, So anyway, so Pani and Sabato, I assume responding to this discussion on some level. Some Web3 art collectors are realizing that throwing money at dumb things won't buy it any cultural relevance beyond a clickbait headline. And this is, so again, it's kind of back to this kind of what for lack of a better term, I'm calling like, because kind of a mainstream Web3 collector base that is, because it's often very speculative. Let's face it, crypto, and just as the traditional art world, contemporary art world is super speculative too, and they're having huge problems there too. So but I really like Sabato's point, though, that real cultural value or cultural relevance or real value of art is not created by throwing money and creating a huge sale, right? Just because it goes for $69 million doesn't mean it will be remembered. That doesn't equal being remembered, and time, it's kind of back to this old theme that we've been discussing here, since the start of this show, is time is the judge. And money will not buy you cultural relevance, right? Meanwhile, I'm still poor, but I collect artworks I admire at no fancy prices, and I get to see them showing at actual art museums. So, and here are the examples. Lorna Mills, Nicholas Sassoon. So all sorts of example. Ellie Pritz having a solo show at Bitforms. And so all to say, Ed Marola making a music. Exactly. Like, I'm kind of back to, I don't see Strange Thing in Vogue Italia. It's like, we're booming, is what I'm seeing. But maybe that's just an artist's perspective. Like, if it's purely about, being able to buy and sell, I mean, it's the flipper's dilemma. Sure. Maybe it's not a great time to be a flipper, right? I mean, maybe that's what it really comes down to. Who knows? Let's look at Artie Hands. For the first time, I'm seriously considering selling my punk. Well, ETH is at $2,900, Artie. And you could probably get I'm guessing you could get probably, I imagine it's like $800,000 to $1.2 million for this image, Artie. I would be seriously considering it too. This is also interesting. So someone asked why. It doesn't make me feel anything anymore. And this is interesting too. Because it's very interesting. I mean, and we're going to see a tweet on this, because as we see, it's kind of a freaky thing. I think if Bitcoin really develops layer 2s that are convincing, and DeFi starts happening on decentralized finance starts happening on Bitcoin, it's an interesting question what happens to ETH. It's just an interesting open question. It's still a massively, like, the second most decentralized crypto, but it does make you wonder. And so, just interesting discussion from Artie Hands there. Big shout out to Artie Hands. OMZ, delusions of cyberpunk in a space led by VCs and influencers. We need a new movement within the movement formerly known as crypto art, because this is quickly becoming everything we were meant to disrupt. So again, I feel like this is something that's happening in what I loosely, very, very loosely call the mainstream crypto scene. That I'm guessing that art isn't selling so much on Ethereum right now. Although we see RJ just made a sale, we see his dribble waffles, but I think they're talking. I'm not sure what they're talking about, to be perfectly honest. Feel free to leave a comment, because I probably just am not aware, to be honest. But just interesting, the liquidity of a lot of this one-of-one art on Ethereum that was spent, tens of thousands of dollars. It's not the most liquid investment, and in a sense, it never has been. Let's continue here. Uxine with a really cool physical. Thank you, Patrick Bateman, for collecting the silk screen UCZ Ux Vision Pro Max. So here it is, really beautiful. kind of a hat tip to Warhol here, but beautiful mistakes here. I mean beautiful, like errors in a good way. That's what I'm getting at here. Beautiful, the bleed here, and all of the wonderfulness of this blue here. And again, work that would never be made digitally. And of course, I believe Uxine is, and there's the Vision Pro with an Uxine happy face on it. And of course, Uxine is doing this kind of special process at home. Looks like a water-based silk screen, probably a gouache, I'm guessing, or some sort of water-based silkscreen ink. You can use, I guess acrylic is water-based too, but there's different kinds of, like this is more of a thinner, I think gouache is what they use. This looks like a gouache. And then there you see some orange kind of mixed with the beautiful pink, beautiful combination there. Anyway, looking great and sold. So very cool there. Is this Lone, let's see, let's get this fixed here. Lonewood, good morning. I received a gorgeous plot of my appearance in being number 3 mint from Pixel O Symphony. So I believe Pixel Symphony, generative artist with a master's in history of modern art and curatorial studies. So a pretty nice plot work here, isn't there? The color quality is so pleasing, and the in real life details reveals more about its construction than I hadn't noticed. I love how the physical ink and slight imperfections enhance the aesthetic of the work. And we just saw that in Uxine, right? Like this is kind of why for digital artists, like physical works, we're seeing with Cider there. And what's the problem that Cider's having in a sense with the inkjet? Where's the physical errors? Where are they going to happen? Right? So just an interesting challenge. And so this will definitely be going on in a frame on the wall. So all to say, yeah, it's as Warhol famously said, embrace the errors. I'm incredibly lucky to be able to call this beautiful human being my friend. Thank you. So Lonewick on the scene there. And here is Boo Boy. Today's work is working hard for parts of Legend Collector. So here we see Boo Boy in the studio here. As you see one of Boo Boy's works on a couple of stools, working hard. Nice studio. Very cool. So good for Boo Boy. And here is Jada, who we saw, and I'm not sure if we have one in this today's episode, but the last couple episodes we've had Jada with a Dave Smith synthesizer. That is that's supposed to be a pretty good synth there. And here, what is it? CRT installation today. So there we see a window into Jada's workspace. Interesting how diverse these workspaces can be. Empress Trash. We're at 52 minutes and we haven't even really got to the show yet, hilariously. Or at least to the artworks. We're going to speed up here. Empress Trash. Got my Let's Glitch It cam. Thank you, Glitch Visceral, for mailing it to Mexico. So here is the work again, and you got to love the cameras, actually. So more examples of the camera, and I think we have Let's Glitch It here. Don't imagine Twitter. Okay, so it's a little... So the Twitter is kind of rendering this in kind of a rough way, the compression, but you see basically what's going on. Don't imagine Twitter will play this well, but dang, I love these cameras. So yeah, just very cool. It's like Glitch Art Maker. And here also Dania, Let's Glitch It, who made the camera. First Procreate Dreams experiment. AI collage animation with circuit bent camera textures. If you pause on the iframes, you kind of tell that what it's supposed to look like. So there you go. So experimenting with the new Procreate with the animation. And here, Dr. Version is going to mint on Solana this week. So that'll be fun to watch and interesting work. Here's a still from one of those works. And here's Leonidas, as we were just discussing here. The promise of Oracles and Bitcoin Layer 2s is that you'll get all the functionality of general purpose blockchains like Ethereum, but with the full decentralization and security of the largest and longest running blockchain. Now, kind of to a certain degree concerning words for ETH investors, nevertheless, look at ETH's price. I mean, the market does not seem to be reflecting this, interestingly. But I think a provocative thought worth sharing here. Web3 arriving on Bitcoin will carry this next cycle. More provocation and a little bit of trolling from Leonidas there. Here is Rinny Fish. Let's see if we can get this working here. There's some really nice music on this. So get the show started. 54 minutes in here. So good vibes from Rinny Fish. Cool beat. Kotoba. Mere words were no longer enough, so he jumped out of the pond and became the conductor of the forest. Really cool spirit to this work. Edition of 1. Not listed yet. Very cool. Here's Dan Control with a beautiful work here. Putting out a lot of work on Tezos recently. Common Rudd. So putting out a fish here. Beautifully done. The color is wonderful here with all these beautiful scales. Of course, the trademark gradient style. And there at the bottom, you see the bottom of the sea here. Really cool work from Dan Control. Stunning. Kind of shouts out in that kind of almost salmon pink in the fins there. Just really beautiful work there. That's 10 Tezos each. And how many? Already 9 gone. Quick 90 Tezos for a lot of people buying 2. And look at this. Dan Control doing really well. Heap of Tranquility. This went to Bullseye for 250 Tezos. Nice sale. 1 of 1. So Dan Control doing very well right now, and of course using a lot of Dan Control's previous works. Almost looking like recycling the background. Remember, we are all remixers. That's the same artist, and here remixing it seems to be Dan Control's other work: the lighter, the plant, the chair, the cigarette box, the cigarette, the Vapo cigarette or electric cigarette, and finally even the background. All remixed, and here's a new work. 1 of 1 sells for $250. Boom. Heap of Tranquility. Great title. So nice work from Dan Control. And here's another one. Ring Ring, edition of 50 for 5 Tezos each. There are 37 left. So Dan Control having a pretty good weekend here. And here again, you can see the gradient style there with no outlines, with the invisible outlines there. In a landscape, hilariously, again. I remember these phones when I was a kid. Shout out to Mom. And here is the myth, DGen Factory number 1. So interesting work. So the myth on Zora, interestingly, and only, 8 minted so far. And there we see, I feel like I recognize this figure from a movie or something. And here a trading card and then some gambling. So perhaps referencing the crypto scene, with classic kind of myth clouds, but almost looking like a Windows XP background. In DGen We Trust, shout out to JSIC. Very cool. So the myth on Zora, which kind of want to mint on sometime soon. Again, Rat Cloaksy here, 2094. Interesting title. This painting is based on a childhood photo with my brother, Igor, 1996. So very cool. So a personal work here of family. By Rat Cloak with his brother in it. And there you see, let's look up close here, almost like a Francis Bacon-esque teddy bear there with an orange cone and purple fingernails there. And interesting. So I wonder who is who. Maybe this is Rat Cloak and that's Igor, but not sure. Not sure in this classic like 1980s jacket. So beautifully painted here. And some interesting pills on the ground, some photos and everything, some old aluminum cans, and there's even what seems to be a cat. Not exactly sure. Interesting, beautiful piece here from Rat Cloak edition of 10 for 30 Tezos each, and I think selling out. Right? So that's pretty good. Like, again, people are talking about how bearish this market is. I still see a lot of work selling. I still put it this way. I still see opportunity. If you're an artist and you want to sell your work, there's opportunity on the blockchain. It might be trickier in certain areas than others. If you haven't tried Tezos, you may want to try. It's pretty easy to get set up. Kukai wallet's pretty good. The King. So this is Soom with another one of these beautiful, like, painterly works here. And so, again, these experiments, which really seem to be going somewhere. Again, I believe a digital work. So, amazingly so. And here's the King. I think it's a digital work. I'm not positive, but I think it's digital. Not positive, again, and if it's physical, it's also super impressive. But I think it's digital. So this is 3 Tezos, and already 6 are gone. So nice work from Soom. Another nice addition to that series. Portrait of Ozzy Osbourne at Disneyland. This is an edition of 1, and this was transferred to Hashgrown. And here you see Ozzy Osbourne with some Mickey Mouse ears and Disneyland in the background. Cool work. Maybe a commission from De Taste, who we heard from in the intro there. And here is a pretty hilarious work. Fail artist number 71, stopping with the Roman numerals. Self-portrait, my last day at work. Now, you can rest assured, this is, if you read the description, which is actually quite hilarious, this is a lump hammer. The hammer turned out to be made of lightweight rubber. So here's the failed artist, and this is the boss of the failed artist at McDonald's. So the failed artist losing his job was smoking his McDonald's cigarette there at McDonald's, but this is made of foam. So again, kind of a crazy clown there. 2 Tezos, edition of 11, and 5 are gone. Right. So again, work is selling here. Edition of 20 at 10 Tezos each from Stulka. 2 gone. 20 Tezos in Stulka's pocket. Let's see if we can hit play here. Of course, Stulka, great kind of contemporary, what I call contemporary illustrator. So, very contemporary scene here, being on public transportation, a subway in a big city. Midnight reverie. A girl encounters a mysterious man on the midnight subway. The eerie yet romantic meeting unfolds to an unexpected journey. She feels uneasy and questions herself, is this reality or just a midnight reverie? So, cool work from Stulka as usual. And here is Flora Marquez, 48 minted. You know, that's probably $100 in Flora's pocket there. Galathea del Bosque, and still 10 days to go. So this is part of the Fashion Beasts series, looking great there on Zora's page with the white background and then the drawn out kind of frame here. Very cool work in Flora's immediately recognizable style here, and even just the nice painterliness of the whole thing, the background there. Here is Rustic Digital Art with a pretty wild one. Selling for 22 Tezos here. Road to a Collector's Heart. An interesting, kind of broken up work here. We see what looks like maybe a Pikachu, perhaps. And then a couple of Mario, there's Luigi, and maybe a bit of a question mark, kind of broken up here. Very edgy work here. From very edgy and experimental. It's not easy. I keep saying this with Rustic Digital Art's work. It's not easy to be irrational. You really got to take a leap and go against what your brain wants you to do. Road to a Collector's Heart, again, sold for 22 Tezos to District 468. Here is Mumbleboy, Parts Against the Whole, selling, listed for two listed for 8 Tezos. Beautiful work here. Nice addition of the frame here, interestingly. Looks like almost like some dragged pixels, and then just a completely different composition here, kind of a more spaced out composition here. From Mumbleboy. So cool digital collage there, edition of 2. And continuing on, here is PP Universal with some interesting, I don't know the translation of that, but almost a bit of a war theme. These look like fighter jets, don't they? And what are they up close here? Not even sure, but making these, customized brushes here with these fighter jets and maybe a stone here, or maybe an animal. Unclear. And there's sky. A piece of rectangular sky there with the fighter jets over top. I mean, pretty cool work. Edition of 5, 2 selling already. 1 to Lorna Mills, selling for 14 Tezos in PP Universal's pocket there. Comunicando selling for 8 Tezos. I mean, I'm kind of back like maybe that's not going for the amounts that people are hoping in some places there, but I don't see like a market that's over. I see artists selling work that want to sell their work, and if they, and really, again, I'm always kind of back to, contemporary art friends in Berlin here. If they're making a drawing that takes them a day or a work that takes them a day or two, and they can sell that for $30, that's a good day for them. Right? And so to me, that's the reality, and it's just a sign of how good the blockchain has had it. Because the money that's in the blockchain is the reason why I think people have it much better than they might have realized. And it's still good, I would argue. Here's Nov 1914. Again, if you can make work and sell it, you're moving ahead as an artist. So here's Nov 1914. Interesting experiment. Look at this experimental work. Sold. 9 Tezos here. Comunicando. And this was made on February 18th. So made yesterday, already gone. Edition of 1. Interesting piece from Nov 1914. And we have a new one from Zozo. And I think there's some volume here. Let me see if it plays. Edgy work. Kind of goes beautifully. I almost wonder if this is a collaboration. This almost looks like, but maybe not. I was going to say with Nov 1914 there. Look at these heads. Hilarious and just brilliant music. Let's see. This is on ETH and selling. This is on Zora. Interestingly, selling for 0.0016 and already 3 gone. So maybe again, additions. If you're having a hard time finding sales, maybe additions. Maybe Zora. Zora and Tezos. Great places to be. This was just listed by Hasdrubal Waffle. It looks like we're back to the bodybuilders. This time they're playing the saxophone in kind of a 1980s background there with a nice screen frame. Just very cool work there from the great Hasdrubal Waffle once again. And here's RJ with some new additions to this, the Deep Waters of the Web series. So maybe this one's working with water. We see the noise is spreading here. And of course, this looks like Ophelia, drowned. This looks like Ophelia, again, another famous pre-Raphaelite work, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But maybe it's a different one. But it kind of looks like Ophelia, doesn't it? Of course, from Hamlet. And so getting the treatment here from RJ, and let's speed up a little bit here. We're already at hour 6. And of course, this looks like Eugène Delacroix, I believe, Shipwrecked. And so here, another reference to another famous painting here, done in the similar kind of style, the computer green and black, and almost like the early Apple II with the beautiful noise surrounding it. And here's another one. So these ones all have water. These are on Ethereum. And by the way, one of these sold. I think maybe it was Ophelia. Sold 0.05. That's $150. Okay. So more, I mean, if you list it 3 days ago and you already have one sold, that's good, right? Windows Still Life number 108, John Carroll. Interesting change in the style a little bit here from John Carroll, who often does the skeletons, kind of famously on Tezos. A bit of a different work with the windows here. So just interesting to see that. Windows Still Life number 108. And this is sold out. So it's already on secondary. Like another example here, selling out for 50 Tezos each. Edition of 25. I mean, so a cool 25 minted like 3 days ago, 3 days ago, the 16th, minted on Friday. It is already sold out at 50 Tezos each for an edition of 25. What is that? Like $1,250 more, right? Because we're already above $1 on Tezos. I found the gate. Here's Seba Sestaro. This is 75 Tezos, a 1 of 1. So another kind of psychological work here, illustration, kind of surreal illustration of the figure, kind of always having to do with like memory and almost like the phenomenology or the phenomenon of just like inner space here. I found the gate. So posted by Seba Sestaro yesterday. So cool 1 of 1 there. And here's Turkarak, dealer and undercover cop, sold for 45 Tezos. Wow. Dealer and undercover top. So that's a pretty good price for Turkarak there. So again, it's not like we're going to these pieces and they're all kind of sitting on the shelf here. Interesting work. I think this is using Procreate Dreams, but I'm not positive. But there is some animation going on here, isn't there? And kind of looking like a drug dealer or something, kind of classic Turkarak subject matter. Again, the dark side, or the darker side of human nature, shall we say. Say the word. Jordi Gandul, this is an edition of 22 for 10 Tezos. So another cool illustration here, kind of doing a variation on what's often this kind of city area with this kind of big frame here. Pretty cool. and a few selling for 10 Tezos each, quick 30 Tezos for Jordy Gandil. And here, the paper crane. So cool kind of internet-y type work here, GM. I wonder how they're doing. They usually sell a ton, and there's a cool FX hash. Just posted on X there, that image. And another image posted on X, Move Some, with a cool high heel shoe here in a cool kind of illustrative way. It's kind of a modern art effect in the design there, and a big red background there, a nice illustrated border like a comic panel. Here's Manny, a Pole Odyssey Retroman side quest, a Pole propaganda side quest, part of Pole. So pumping Pole here, the crypto, cool audio. Wow. Wow. God, what does that remind you of? That is hilarious. All of a sudden I'm in The Empire Strikes Back, I think. Beautiful. Of course, it is Retro Man. So we can't show the whole thing, unfortunately, but you kind of get... So, and here's the story. So, hilarious. Sponsored by Pole. So do your diligence there, and what is this? Edition of 30. And you can probably buy it in Pole. Here's Santiago working with some different kinds of abstracts here. As you see, they almost have a bit more of a three-dimensional feel to them. And interesting, we'll see if we can zoom in here. How are we doing? Okay, we're going to have to run through the rest of this episode here. And maybe even a touch of Mumble Boy influence in there, but who knows? And interesting, kind of solid, just all sorts of interesting textures there. 10,000 by 6,000. 15 Tezos, edition of 10. 3 gone already. Quick 45 Tez for Santiago. Here's another one, edition of 15, and these are 8 Tezos each, and 4 gone already, so another 32 Tezos for Santiago. And here, kind of in that same almost three-dimensional style here. So a variation on the previous abstracts. Those are on Tezos. Here's Reikes. And I think we saw this on Twitter, a small... Remember the guy, Reikes was going to say, it's going to start my NFT career. So starting it and already selling a few here, 5 Tezos each, and this beautiful pixel art flowers here. A nice kind of take, kind of has an impressionist feel to them. We got a few others. Here's floral number 1. Look, this artist here, if you go to their page, there's only these 4 flowers, as far as I could tell. 0009 Lansky, selling. So, 5 Tezos each. So bringing in probably 50 Tezos here altogether just to get started there, and all minted in the last week. Beautiful works. And I think these ones are blue. These ones really stood out. On a quiet day, you could start with these. Floral 03. So beautiful works here from Reikes. And look at this, 35 Tezos. So actually more than 50 Tezos, probably 60 or 70 Tezos brought in. Here is Nicholas Dietrich, new work in progress, got the main structure, and now think I'm going to think about the sky, some dithering and animation. So just going to show how much thought Nicholas Dietrich puts into these really enigmatic pixel art works. And there's like a cement truck. Very original works here. Here's another one, if we can see it on Instagram. We'll see if it plays. And just another, again, totally enigmatic. Look at this thing at the top. 1,200-ton obelisk. So I guess that's that thing there. Unfortunately, I can't zoom in too much more. That was seen on Instagram, where you can see Nicholas's work as well. Look at this epic work here. We're at hour 13, and we're only at Ed Marola's work here. Let's see if this plays. It's sort of like the market can do whatever it wants as long as we're putting out work like this. It's all secondary, And there, this layer, this dreaming layer, and you almost wonder if that's Ed. So check it all out. Check it all out. It's on Tezos, Chapter 1 Scroll, Mangrove Dream of Tego Dago. So continuing the scroll innovation that I first saw with Ed. Drink the potion in bed, write your dreams, don't drive or operate machinery. So another maybe preview here. And there's no volume on this one, but Ed up to all sorts of cool stuff with this They Are Dreaming Us series. So very cool there. Ed's probably been on this show, I think, more than any other artist, I think, by virtue not just of the quality of the work, but of the prolificness. And he took a little break there for a couple of weeks, and it felt like a completely different world there. Buthermord, this is by Figments, also known as Cap, and this, again, sold out. So another cool work here. And this is an edition of 10 for 10 Tezos, and again, looking like sold out same day. So a quick 100 Tezos for our friend Figments, or Cap'n, in Costa Rica there. This is also posted by Cap'n on Twitter here, and I obviously follow Cap'n. That is a Twitter glitch, XYZ. So just really interesting experimentation. Gotta love the contrast with this color there. And I think we have, and here's Popple. Look at Popple with 15,000 views there, 134 retweets. Incredible. So this work here, not sure, kind of looks like kind of a zombie figure with some spikes coming out. So just another interesting work here from Popple, always keeping it, original. And like that border that goes around with the figure outside of it, I mean, just very interesting. And it's almost like a kind of operating system window here. Anyways, let's continue. Element Lee with a really interesting piece here. Very experimental, kind of freehand lines here on the side. Kind of looking, this is like an elevator, but it's almost got, remember I was discussing, if you watched last episode, how kind of video games, you can kind of simultaneously be looking almost straight ahead, simultaneously have almost bird eye looking straight down, and simultaneously looking kind of 45-degree angle. We seem to have that here. And I call that, what would we call that? Computer graphics perspective. Let's call it computer graphic perspective. Let's name that here. Big space cell. So this is called Hall. A really interesting piece from Element Lee, who's just such an interesting artist. Maybe we can zoom in a bit there. Room behind room. So again, playing with these different kind of spaces here. And just more, maybe two colors here, and then the background color. Really nice work from Element Lee, 400 by 500 pixels, being very prolific there. Marcel Munteanu, thank you, Marcel. So this is Dina Chang saying, thank you, Marcel Munteanu, for the wonderful Valentine's Day gift. So let's take a look here. And here, a beautiful pixel art flower here. Is this a one of one? One wonders. So a very nice gift there for the great Dina Chang. And this is hilarious. Kind of edgy. This is comedy cartoon with William Dafoe, Sunday Service. Well, this is from 2022. I forgot about this. Well, I didn't realize this was an older work. I saw this on Twitter. I think I remember this coming out. This was a pretty edgy work. There's also Kermit the Frog. And I think why this came out was Lubitel Blitzness was saying that the Venus Project, this work here, you'll get it if you buy that other work, I think. And there's Kermit the Frog. This is a wild work. We'll quickly, we don't really have time, but we do have time. Goodbye, Blue Monday. Let's see if, I just remember this being pretty wild. Right. Cut the tape. All right, so, right. So if you haven't seen Lubitel Blitzness, let's continue here. Mech.txt, Vending Love. So the vending machine has been minted by Mech.txt. I mean, look at how much work. Again, it's hard to be bearish on this scene when you're seeing so much imagination, and this is being sent over to everybody that probably used the vending machine. That's pretty cool, I assume. Gallery data in Loacme, original artwork by Loacme. So here, I believe this is a one of one and just a nice simple pixel artwork, maybe generative, not sure. It's kind of a mysterious pixel artwork. Edition of 5, and looks like a collaboration here. So maybe there's programming in there, not sure. Here's Tomba Battle, the Fiery Horror. This is edition of 17, selling out at 6 Tezos each. Okay. And here we see kind of like a sea monster of sorts here, sea dragon, and there's the ship going down. This could be like a cover for Ultima or something. The Fiery Horror. So again, 17 times 6. I mean, what is that? 100 Tezos. There you go. And here, a celebratory work, Firework Droplets. This is at $450. Again, it's almost tempting to call this market's, I don't know if I'd call it on fire. I guess it depends where you look and what the market is for you. Like the market I'm paying attention to is on fire. And everything's selling, right? Like maybe not everything is completely sold out. Then it would be like a full-on boom. But it's pretty hot, I would say. I mean, again, when was this? This was posted when? Like a day ago? So Fireworks Droplets. So nice celebratory work there. We'll see that work again as we close the show there. Gogolitis the Horizon. So more experimentation here from Gogolitis. Waiting for the Acid Boy crossover there, or collaboration. Padu, Headache. And this is an edition of 1, sold 50 Tezos, $50, actually more, US. Okay, so again, cool, nice work. Headache Padu made in Aspirite. Francoise Gamma. This is an edition of 30 for 3 Tezos. GeoJump, very cool work. Interesting negative space and just kind of white background here from Francoise Gamma. Just really interesting piece here, just listed. Here is SB Svezzer Memento Mori, edition of 15 for 5 Tezos, already foregone. Quick $20. And here we see it. I have a small message for you. So interesting pixel artwork here from Svezzer, if I'm pronouncing that right. Here's Pamelo, 23 minted. I mean, it's probably $46 there for Pamelo, F1 Takapam. So cool work from Pamelo with the F1 celebration here. Totally fun. Here's Kyle Flemmer, edition of 15, and again, only 66 Tezos cents, and that is sold out now. Nightmare Fuel, and here you see kind of a video game like scene here with this monster chasing over. So made with sprites and tiles from Pokemon Red, Blue, and Pokemon. So combining a couple of games for Game Boy. Interesting. And here's a 1 of 1 from Right Click Dead, and which I think is Brain. Is it Brain Click or Brain Dead on X? And here, kind of a mystical work here with this, what looks like a yogi and a fire behind, a 1 of 1 for 75 Tezos. And I can't read this. Immolation, self-immolation, maybe on fire. Interesting. Chaz, Atomic Desk, another pixel artwork. This is an edition of 10. And, how many are left here? 7 left at 3 Tezos, but selling quite a few. More work continues to sell here. Atomic Desk Boiled, Renato Marini, edition of 1. And this is going for 87 Tezos. Interesting kind of operating system elements here. All juggling together, or mixing together, shuffling together. Boiled, cool title. As we continue here, Glitchtown Arcade, edition of 30 for 99 cents. Already 5 gone here. We're not even seeing that many works where like nothing's selling here, amazingly. So playing with hurdles here. Cool video ROM glitch, video game ROM glitch here. Nintendo, Run No Matter What, cool title, nice glitch, cool subject. I love sports. Here is Agnes on Teia. Collect for 10 Tezos. I think there are 3 left. Now, I'm not sure if there's volume on this because I noticed this actually has a really cool start if we have time here. Let me see if, did I bring it? No, I didn't bring it. On Twitter, you could see like windows load up here. Unfortunately, I can't actually get back to that tab. But it was a really cool work by Agnes there. Psychofuturist, which could hang in the same show. Pixels in their wild state. And you'll see 7 of those sold for 10 Tezos each for Agnes, by the way. It's a quick 70 Tezos. And here, Psychofuturist making a bunch of sales here too. Edition of 10, sold out. Actually, another interesting piece here. So pixels in their wildest state, just interesting art. Kind of has almost a Dada feel to it. Here is Suisoichi. So cool that 0.1% of people feel good. It was very... So anyways, a very cool pixel artwork here with what looks like a tombstone here. Rest in peace. And some flowers there. Interesting treatment. Continuing on as we run through the rest of this Trilobite with a couple, and I follow Trilobite art. And here looks like maybe a Sailor Moon character or Sailor Moon herself. And here's another one of, I think, Mario or Luigi. So interesting works there from Trilobite. And continuing on, Slava 3. Good morning. Interesting combination of ASCII and different processes mixed together. Really nicely done of the skeleton here. Cool work there. Here's Walk, who we were discussing earlier, 1020. And again, if you're on top of things, you can get one of these really cool 911 one-of-ones for reasonable price. Here, now going for 4 Tezos to Hans. Very cool there. Here's Lorna Mills, just on... I feel like maybe we've seen this work before, but it was such a cool work that I wanted to show it. Just, again, these nature works with these masks are really cool. And if you go to Lorna Mills' Instagram, I was just noticing it's kind of color. You'll notice it kind of goes according to color a little bit. Interestingly, so nice little detail there. I didn't notice that before. Look at these beautiful oranges. Let's continue. Kyle Fleming, Syzygy, Venus in Transit. 5 highest offers, minimum 2 Tezos. Cool work here, as you see. Kind of an astronomical work, and that's probably a pixelated sun in the background. And Venus in Transit. Very interesting piece here. So that is 2 Tezos offers coming in. And Shai Hulud, the Colossal, 40 minted so far. And this is by, I think, Mason Flow. And here we see almost like a Loch Ness monster. Didn't we just see a sea monster? It was Tom Bombadil. So cool work here. Let's speed up a little bit here. Artie Hans posted this. I thought this was a really interesting work. One duos by Cuatro Cero Nueve. Just an interesting mix of stuff. Kind of looking like a glitch ROM, but mixed with some photo collage. Not even sure. Interesting piece there. And here's Lucas Lejeune, Idea Stream. Another cool work here. So again, using After Effects and I believe Illustrator. Pretty interesting works here. Idea Stream, that's an edition of 10, and already several sold at 5 Tezos each. Looks like 8 sold there. I thought this was brilliant. And again, it's flashing, so I'm not going to leave it on too long by Rinky. I was almost tempted to start with this. Like, I thought there's something kind of beautifully minimal about this work by Rinky. Edition of 1, not listed yet. I found this work within the context of Renke's other work very interesting. Like, just kind of a minimal... It had all the credibility of Renke putting out a work day after day after day. Then Renke could put out just a minimal little strobe like that, and all of a sudden it seemed to have so much more meaning based on the track record, based on who it came from. Here's another work by Renke, a really cool piece. This is also an edition of 1. So cool kind of shadows and minimal kind of geometric kind of structures here. And let's keep going here. And Acid Boy, look at this. More experimentation from Acid Boy here. Almost like without the circle in the middle, interestingly, and just this bubbling kind of lava-esque rainbow, pastel-y rainbow. Almost pastel, not quite pastel. Mika Oladev. Here, more interesting take on the bust from Mika Oladev. Super interesting. Good night. And here is Kuro. As we hit an hour and a half here. Here's Kuro with another interesting, what I'd call animated video abstract. You know, Soft Boy. This is going for 0.0404 ETH on Foundation. Here's another one by Kuro, Procreate. Interesting title. This goes full screen here and just listed here on Zora. Interesting. I'm starting to follow people on Zora too, so it should be easier to find people's works. Just cool work here. Kind of anime and, again, video. This was interesting. Joe Howell, Delicate Dance, which could also fit in a show with those works there. And again, incorporating video. And where's the Martin Bruce work? There was a Martin Bruce work. I'll have to remember that for next week. Went to Martin Bruce work, just worked perfectly right after this, right? Delicate Dance. I can feel the gap. We'll bring it next episode. Composition 139. So, of course, this is close with a beautiful color here of the purple and the greens and the turquoise. Just another brilliant work, Composition 139. And this is sold and listed for 600. We're actually not sure what happened there. Maybe mint sale. Not sure what happened there. Looks like still available. And here is another one, Composition 137. And this is still available, 22 Tezos. So a couple more works here from Klaus. Continuing the series. And here's another one, Composition 138, sold to Commodore for 21 Tezos. Cool cube in the middle. So again, the sales continue here. And here's another one, Composition 141, and also by Klaus. So more cool work in that series in the 140s. The Life of Objects Outside, this is Sky Goodman. This is 500 Tezos, and I believe an edition of one. It is an edition of one here, so cool work from Sky Goodman. Sky was going to be on the Spaces this week, but had to delay. So we're actually going to have Runtun talking about his trip to Asia, as well as the shows he recently saw in New York. We're going to go deeper into depth on that. I'm going to post that probably tomorrow, so really cool space to look forward to. And Sky, we're already rescheduling. No Hygiene, modular. So No Hygiene with some more experimental AI art here. There's this piece. There's a ton that No Hygiene releases. There's another one. Kind of had an Alien. Someone was saying Alien versus Predator kind of feel to it. More wild, experimental. Look at how well this is doing. So nice work from No Hygiene. You got to be impressed by the audience who's kind of digging like very experimental work. Skamra with another kind of cool piece with some great texture on it, kind of looking a bit more like an architectural scene or a building, the facade of a building there. Mr. Bezold with a really cool work. This is a one of one. This is going for 1,500 Tezos. I believe AI artwork. Interesting combination of almost what look like these Pantone colors here, of almost all the colors that are in this work. Just makes a beautiful juxtaposition. Interestingly, going behind the landscape a little bit there, behind the mountains, but on top over here. It's kind of becoming a part of the landscape. Silhouettes and reflections, digital painting. So very interesting. As we move through the AI, here is Strange Thing with some cool, I Can't Live Without Music, late GM, with some cool, almost Renaissance-like pants, but fuzzy and Nike style, jogging pants almost. Interesting combination, fusion. I feel like this is from a Raphael, I'm sure. I can see this is like, not Madonna of the Goldfinch, but another one with lighter colors. It feels like. I'm sure there's a lot going on in there. Let's continue. Another beautiful, look at this texture by Strange Thing. Look at this. And there's this little slide with Louis Vuitton logos on it, and a very interesting piece here. Incredible, these hard textures here. The textures are kind of dominating the work, which is super interesting. Kind of very postmodern, isn't it? RJ, isn't it, RJ? Strange Thing. So more, again, the prolificness, just incredible. The creativity here, and then taking an idea and then just exploring it, almost exploiting that idea, trying it in every different kind of way you can think of, which is really cool. More interesting work from Strange Thing. Here's a work by Lily Illo, kind of a nice painterly work here. Again, seeming to play with the architectures and chairs, 3 arms, interesting colors, almost a nice flatness to it. Architect reclines supine. So another cool work, cool glasses. Again, very AI artwork there. And here's Dreaming Digitally. So this is on exchange.art that it's going to be dropped. I think an AI artist. Let me see. It doesn't say. But we saw there are a few works here. And this one's going to be, this sold on OpenSea. So just some stuff for 0.3 ETH. So $85. So another cool, I think, AI artwork. And here's another one, which will be dropped on Object. So multi-chain there. dreaming digitally. So not a bad thing to do in a tough market. Okote, Touching Grass, tweeting about it. So, of course, who did the Global South series here. So here you have the revolutionaries on their phones in the jungle here, seemingly. And finally here we have Venta, just keep floating as we hit hour 34. So kind of, again, playing with a 3D plasticine sort of look here. Cool work by Venta as we zoom out. Very complicated work, but interesting work. Almost a Déjeuner sur l'herbe type pose there. Interesting work there. And finally, we have Martin Joe, if it'll load up, a good night bear or a good morning bear with the coffee here and the mushrooms and the heart. So heartwarming work from Martin Joe. And here's Tukes with a Salvador Dali-esque landscape at the bottom here. Screams Dali in the bottom half of the work, and then with some nice abstraction up top. See if there's any clues here. Sweet Dreams. Yes, maybe a tiny clue there. And this is also by Tukes here. Very painterly AI artwork here, interestingly. I mean, AI has become very good at painting, as you can see here. Very convincing. And here we have Yoao. I'm back. So Yoao back on the scene after maybe a little break here. So more beautiful textures, real world painting here, probably an acrylic if I remember right, with all sorts of internet iconography. And this is Denise Sanchezarte, space shorthand signs and graphics that are evolving, connecting, like acrylic on paper. So another work here, kind of nice, almost black and white with just a little bit of color in here. So another cool work from Denise here. Another cool abstract artist, Andre Schultz art. I thought this was just kind of interesting from a technical perspective because sometimes it can seem, to me this is an illustration, and we've looked at Andre Schultz art before, but it's an illustration of how important the tools are. Because if you were to try and make this with not a square brush, it would be so much more difficult. And I know because I've tried to do pixels and, you know, slaving away here. And then I see this artist here just making it look so easy. But it's because they picked the right brush. You see, it's a square brush. And making it look easy, but there's a lot of thought that goes into that. Cool work there. Here's another one, combining pixelation and kind of real world. So interesting work there. And finally here, Amina Bouyayila. So Bouagila, ce week dans Libération. So maybe in the newspaper this week. And this is a physical, I'm pretty sure, kind of a surreal work here, right? This person being torn apart, almost like these two people tearing them apart. Interesting piece. And here's another one by Rune Christensen. Look at that. I don't know if this is a close-up. I hope not. I hope this is just the work. Very, very interesting piece here. Kind of wild space with the plants going over top of the shelf like that. Really beautiful color. Just more brilliant work from Rune Christensen. Rivielt Sev, who's seen some of their work. Another interesting piece here, looking kind of abstract, Behind My Closed Eyes. And a couple of work by Bobasik Matija. We have this car, another one of these kind of distorted cars, these wonderfully distorted cars. And here you see, it's almost like a cubist work here. Maybe that's part of what's going on here. You almost, look at the wheel there. The Rec 100 by 130, this is acrylic and charcoal on unprimed canvas, 2024. Very nice looking work. And another one by Enrique Hermes, also known as Bondoso Bandido. You know, one of those blow up kind of Gumby figures that you see on the sides of highways there. And a couple of them, just a wild work. Wild, and making it red, blue background. And here's one last one, I think Adam Lister Studio. So again, seeing this really interesting kind of square style in all its different manifestations. Look at how huge that is. There is the artist at work. And that, my friends, is your show. Thank you once again for the support, for joining me. Check out the community, check out the newsletter, and until next time, take care.